Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're going to be taking a closer look at the life of Kamala Harris.
Her story is so interesting.
It really is, and we have her memoir to help guide us along the way.
The Truths We Hold, An American Journey.
Exactly.
That's going to be a great resource.
Yeah, we're going to try to go in chronological order, starting with her childhood.
Sounds like a plan.
All right, so Kamala grew up in Oakland, California.
During a really interesting time in history.
Yes, her childhood was really immersed in the energy of the civil rights movement.
And her parents were activists?
Yeah, they were really dedicated to fighting for justice, and that obviously had a big influence on her worldview.
For sure, it wasn't just theoretical for her either.
Right.
She talks in her memoir about attending protests as a little kid.
Oh, wow.
Like literally being pushed around in a stroller at rallies.
Wow.
What an upbringing.
That's wild. And it kind of makes that story about her demanding freedom as a toddler even more impactful.
Totally. It's like this spirit of fighting for what's right was just ingrained in her right from the beginning.
It seems like it. And on top of that, she was exposed to so much Black culture and art growing up.
Especially at Rainbow Sign.
Oh, yeah, that was a cultural center founded by her godfather.
Exactly. And that really broadened her understanding of social issues, and it nurtured her creativity as well.
It sounds like such a vibrant and enriching environment.
It was, but then there was a big change.
Yeah, in middle school,
Right.
Kamala moved with her mother and sister to Montreal, Canada.
Huge culture shock.
Oh, I can only imagine going from a predominantly Black community so deeply involved in the civil rights movement.
To a French-speaking school in another country.
Exactly. Completely different world.
Must have been a huge adjustment.
It was. And she definitely felt that disconnect.
I bet.
She talks about feeling homesick in her memoir.
Yeah.
Not just for her friends and family,
Right, of course.
but for the U.S. itself.
Interesting.
It really highlights how connected she felt to her American identity, even at that young age.
Those early years are so important.
They really shape who we become.
For sure. And eventually, Kamala returned to the U.S. for college.
She did, and she chose Howard University.
A historically Black university.
Such a pivotal moment in her life.
I think so, too. It was like returning to her roots,
Absolutely.
immersing herself in a space dedicated to Black excellence.
It seems like her time at Howard really solidified her commitment to social justice.
And Howard has this incredible legacy.
It does.
It shaped so many Black leaders and intellectuals.
It really is like stepping into a living history book.
Totally surrounded by the energy and legacy of those who came before.
I can only imagine how inspiring that must be. And after Howard, she went on to law school at UC Hastings.
She did, and became really active in the Black Law Students Association.
She did, but then made a decision that surprised a lot of people.
Oh, yeah. She decided to become a prosecutor.
Exactly. What a bold choice.
Especially considering the complicated relationship between the Black community and the criminal justice system.
Absolutely. But for Kamala, it was about being a prosecutor in her own image.
Working for justice from within the system.
It makes you think, though.
Definitely.
Can you really change a system from the inside?
It's a question that comes up again and again throughout her career.
It really does. It's a constant tension, isn't it?
It is.
Wanting to reform a system while also working within its constraints.
Exactly. And that takes us to her first job.
As a prosecutor.
Right at the Alameda County Superior Courthouse.
It's there that she got her first real taste of the criminal justice system.
She got to observe how things really worked behind the scenes.
Not always pretty.
No, she actually talks about this one case.
In her memoir.
Yeah, involving a young mother that really stayed with her.
I can see how that would have a lasting impact.
It definitely solidified her commitment to fighting for justice.
Especially for those who are most vulnerable.
It's those personal stories that really bring her experiences to life.
They do. But her time at the Alameda County DA's office wasn't always smooth sailing.
No, she started to get disillusioned with the leadership there.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she felt like they weren't prioritizing the things she believed in.
I see.
So she made a bold move.
What did she do?
She joined the San Francisco City Attorney's Office.
Wow.
And there she co-founded a task force.
What was it focused on?
A really tough issue. Sexually exploited youth.
That's an incredibly complex problem.
It is, and she wasn't afraid to tackle it head on.
You can really see her confidence growing.
Definitely her ability to lead.
Bring up with solutions.
Exactly, and that leads us to her decision to run for office.
And that's where things get really interesting.
We'll pick up there in the next part of our deep dive.
Stay tuned.
All right, so we're back.
Ready to jump back into the world of politics.
Let's do it.
Okay, so last we left off, Kamala was ready to make a real impact.
By running for office.
Right. It's 2003, and she sets her sights on becoming the San Francisco district attorney.
A big step,
It was a bold move.
especially considering the political landscape at the time.
It really was. Think about it. She was trying to become the first black woman to hold that office.
That's a huge challenge.
It was a big challenge, but she dove in headfirst, embracing all the energy of the campaign.
I bet she was working nonstop.
Oh, yeah. Her memoir paints a really vivid picture of those days.
Oh, really? What kind of things did she talk about?
Well, she talks about connecting with people from all walks of life, using an ironing board as a makeshift desk outside supermarkets.
An ironing board. That's amazing.
I know, talk about dedication.
That is serious dedication.
It really is, and that image of the ironing board, it's so relatable.
I can see that.
It shows her really scrappy, down-to-earth approach.
Which must have resonated with voters.
Definitely, but election night was a nail-biter.
Oh, I bet the tension was palpable.
It was. But in the end, she made history.
She became San Francisco's first black female district attorney.
Such a powerful moment.
It really is.
Her book talks about a father bringing his daughters to witness her victory.
Oh, wow. It's beautiful.
It really speaks volumes about the power of representation. Seeing someone who looks like you achieving something so significant.
It's a reminder that our leaders should reflect the diversity of the people they represent.
Absolutely. And as District Attorney Kamala didn't shy away from tough issues.
Like what kind of issues?
She really focused on both victims of crime and the systemic issues that contribute to crime.
That's a difficult balance to strike.
It is. She wasn't afraid to challenge the status quo.
I can see that.
A good example of that is her Back on Track program.
What was that?
It was a reentry initiative aimed at helping young offenders avoid becoming repeat offenders.
So trying to break the cycle of crime?
Exactly. It's focused on rehabilitation rather than just punishment.
That makes sense, but some people might say that those kinds of programs are just a Band-Aid solution.
Right. They might say it doesn't address the root causes of crime.
Exactly, but Back on Track actually had some pretty impressive results.
It did. The program had low recidivism rates, and it was cost-effective.
So it worked and saved money.
Exactly. It challenges that traditional lock-them-up mentality.
And it makes a strong case for investing in rehabilitation.
Absolutely. It was a data-driven approach.
Which is something we see throughout her career.
We do. She's willing to try new things, but she wants to see evidence that those things are actually working.
It's a very practical approach.
It is. So after proving herself in San Francisco, she sets her sights on an even bigger stage.
California Attorney General.
This election was another dramatic one, wasn't it?
Oh, talk about a roller coaster ride.
It really was. She was initially trailing behind her opponent.
Really?
Yeah. And he even prematurely declared victory.
Oh, wow. Can you imagine the stress?
I know the uncertainty.
It must have been agonizing.
It was. But 3 weeks later, the final votes were tallied, and she emerged victorious.
What a relief that must have been.
This victory was bittersweet, though.
Oh, why is that?
Because her mother passed away shortly before the election.
Oh, that's so sad.
Her inauguration speech included a heartfelt tribute to her mother.
It's clear how much family meant to her.
It really is. And as Attorney General, she faced another huge crisis.
What was that?
The mortgage crisis that was devastating families all across the country.
Oh, yeah. Those predatory lending practices were rampant back then.
So many families were tricked into loans they couldn't afford. And when the housing bubble burst, it led to widespread foreclosures.
What a mess.
This is a really complex issue with far-reaching consequences.
It was.
And Kamala didn't hesitate to take on the big banks.
The ones who were profiting from these practices?
Exactly. She fought tooth and nail.
Good for her.
She even rejected a settlement offer from the White House.
Why would she do that?
Because she felt it didn't adequately address the needs of homeowners.
Wow, that took guts.
It did, going up against powerful interests like that.
It really does show her unwavering commitment to justice.
Even when it meant facing political pressure.
Absolutely. In the end, she secured a $25 billion settlement for California homeowners.
That's huge.
It is. And she also championed the Homeowner Bill of Rights,
which provided crucial protections against predatory lending.
That's a major victory.
It is. It shows the impact she could have on a statewide level.
But her ambition didn't stop there.
It didn't. From California Attorney General to the national stage.
Her journey continues.
Get ready for insightful speeches, intense questioning, and a continued fight for those whose voices often go unheard.
as we explore her time as a U.S. Senator in the final chapter of our Kamala Harris deep dive.
All right, we're back for the final part of our deep dive into Kamala Harris's life.
And what a journey it's been.
It really has. We've seen her go from childhood activist
To a powerful force for change as California's Attorney General.
and now we're stepping onto the national stage as she becomes a U.S. Senator.
It's a whole new ballgame.
It is her election to the U.S. Senate in 2016.
That was a monumental achievement.
It really was. She became only the second black woman in history to hold this office.
What a legacy.
And her maiden speech on the Senate floor.
Oh, that was powerful.
That was so moving.
She invoked the legacy of all those who fought for civil rights and landmark legislation before her.
I get chills just thinking about it.
It's a moment that really sends shivers down your spine, you know?
It does, realizing the weight of history she carries on her shoulders.
Incredible, and one of the issues she championed with such fierce passion
Was the fight for DACA recipients?
Right. These are young people brought to the U.S. as children.
And they face such an uncertain future.
Especially with all the shifting immigration policies.
Exactly. And for those who might not be familiar, DACA stands for Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals.
It was a program that offered some temporary protection from deportation.
Right. And she became a vocal advocate for the DREAM Act.
Which aimed to provide a path to citizenship for these dreamers.
Exactly. And her book really highlights the human cost of these political debates.
It does. She shares the story of Yuriana, a DACA recipient pursuing a PhD in heart research.
It really puts a face to the issue, doesn't it?
It does. You see the incredible potential and contributions of these individuals.
And it makes all the political arguments seem so abstract.
So detached from reality.
Exactly. Like, do we prioritize policy over people?
That's a big question.
It is. And Kamala's approach seems to be centered around recognizing the humanity in these situations.
I think you're right, and she didn't shy away from confronting those in power.
She didn't even when it meant challenging people from her own party.
Really?
Yeah, her questioning of then Secretary of Homeland Security John Kelly.
Oh, about the potential use of DACA information for deportation.
That was a tense moment.
I bet she pressed him relentlessly.
She did, demanding transparency and accountability.
It shows how far she's willing to go to hold those in authority responsible.
Especially when the well-being of vulnerable communities is at stake.
And her opposition to the 2017 Muslim travel ban.
That further demonstrated her commitment to defending the rights of refugees and asylum seekers.
People facing such incredible hardship.
And she fought so hard to ensure they were treated with dignity and respect.
It's a powerful reminder that even in the face of fear and division,
there are leaders who stand up for inclusivity and compassion.
Absolutely. And, looking back at her whole career.
There are certain principles that really seem to guide her actions.
Like what?
Well, one is this idea of testing the hypothesis.
Oh, that's interesting. Where did that come from?
She got that from her scientist mother.
Ah, that makes sense.
It's a very pragmatic approach.
Take action, but also gather data.
To see if it's actually working.
Make sure it's having the intended effect.
Exactly. It shows her commitment to evidence-based solutions rather than just relying on ideology or rhetoric.
It's a smart approach.
It is. And she also emphasizes the importance of seeing and being seen.
What does that mean?
It's about directly engaging with people who are affected by policies.
So not just reading reports.
Or hearing secondhand accounts.
She wants to see things for herself.
Exactly. She wants to get firsthand experience to really understand the complexities of an issue.
That speaks to her empathy.
And her desire to connect with people on a human level.
Whether it's visiting communities impacted by pollution or Syrian refugee camps.
She really wants to understand the lived experiences of those directly impacted by policies.
Powerful stuff. And lastly,
she's a firm believer in the power of collective action and solidarity.
It takes a village.
She always emphasizes that none of us should have to fight alone.
That's a message that really resonates these days.
It does. It's a call to action reminding us that we're stronger together.
And we can achieve so much more when we unite for a common cause.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Kamala Harris's life and career,
it's been quite a ride.
It has. I'm struck by her unwavering commitment to justice. Her tenacity in fighting for the underdog and her belief in the power of collective action.
She's definitely a force to be reckoned with.
She is. And her story really exemplifies the idea that you may be the first, but make sure you're not the last.
That's a great message.
It encourages all of us to consider the barriers we can break in our own lives and how we can contribute to a more just and equitable world.
Well said.
So what do you think, whose life should we deep dive into next?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Let us know in the comments.
We love to hear your suggestions.
Until then, keep exploring, Keep questioning and keep striving to make a difference.